This is the best of First and Last, the podcast.
NFL playoffs are crawling closer, and on Saturday we get the Patriots and the Tennessee Titans in a game that no one is giving the road team a chance to win, and even less so because DeMarco Murray is not going to play. Didn't play last week in the win over the Kansas City Chiefs, not going to play this week in the Titans' loss to the New England Patriots, and so Derrick Henry is going to have to be even better than he was in the second half against KFC in the AFC wildcard game. I believe if this is the end of the Patriots dynasty, and a lot of people have been talking about this, that you are going to miss the New England Patriots when it's done, and so you should savor Saturday night. We'll get to that in just a second, but first, ESPN NFL analyst Damian Woody was on with Golic and Wingo yesterday morning. He says that beating New England is going to be a very tall task for Tennessee.
You're going to ask the Tennessee Titans to go into probably the hardest place to play in the postseason, in Foxborough, and go beat a team that, with all the stuff going on, with the article coming out, there's no team that knows how to use these things to motivate themselves and to use it to their advantage better than the Patriots. I mean, you're going to see what we call piss and vinegar. You're going to see that from the New England Patriots coming this weekend. They're going to be fired up and ready to go.
Patriots are laying anywhere from 13 to 14 points. I'm seeing 13.5 right now. Regardless, double-digit favorite, and it's hard to not lay the points. They're at home. It's Marcus Mariota, who's the definition of average. It's Mike Golic, who was very shaky against Kansas City. It's a Titans team that needed Marcus Mariota to throw a touchdown to himself to come back from down 18 points against Kansas City. They needed not only that, but they needed Travis Kelce's absence and Andy Reid doing what Andy Reid does in big games when he's laying points. And so good for Tennessee. They win that game, but they're going into Foxborough, and they're going to get crushed, especially with no DeMarco Murray, and especially with everything that Damian Woody said. But this game sort of has hanging over it. He mentioned the article, right? The article which has exposed the dysfunction and all the stuff happening behind the scenes with the New England Patriots, the Seth Wickersham article, which you could still read front page of the NFL page at ESPN.com. And so a lot of people are talking about how, well, this is edging us closer to the end of the Patriots dynasty, which, I mean, we're getting close to the end of it anyway because Tom Brady's 40 years old. And Robert Kraft is 74, and Bill Belichick is 66. Like, we're closer to the end than the beginning, right? So you're hearing a lot about that. Saturday night, they're going to play the Tennessee Titans. They're at home. They're going to win that game. And then they're going to play in the AFC Championship game, I'm guessing against Pittsburgh. To me, that's a total toss-up. That was a great game a couple of weeks ago at Heinz Field. Obviously, this one's going to be at Gillette if they play. That game is a total toss-up. That wouldn't surprise me if Pittsburgh won. And so then people are going to be kicking dirt on the Patriots dynasty, perhaps justifiably so, maybe a little bit prematurely. So what I'm saying is enjoy Saturday night. Enjoy Saturday night. Now, even if you're not a Patriots fan, you're probably saying to me, well, wait a minute, why would I enjoy Saturday night if I'm not a Patriots fan? Because I believe when this dynasty is over, you're going to miss this. There is no team in professional football. Right now, frankly, I don't think there's a team in professional sports. The Golden State Warriors, perhaps an exception. I don't think there's a team in sports, though, like the New England Patriots. We don't see runs like this. We don't see nearly 2-decade-long runs of sustained excellence in the NFL where a team goes to the playoffs every single year. Team wins its division every single year, and they do it while constantly reinventing themselves. I mean, just think of all the different incarnations of the Patriots we've had since 2001, from run-heavy teams to pass-first teams to teams that beat you with defense to teams that beat you with no defense to, just the way they've sort of navigated the fine line between, being active in free agency but not too active in free agency, getting guys in their prime and cutting them loose right before their primes are over, cycling through coaches and then getting some of those coaches back. And meanwhile, people leaving New England, whether they're coaches, execs, or players, and never being heard from again. NFL franchises don't operate as ruthlessly. They don't operate as effectively and efficiently as the Patriots. They're not as polarizing. They're not involved in as many scandals, even though some of them are dumb. No team in the NFL over the last 15 to 17 years has provided as much fodder for sports talk radio, for Twitter. By the way, the Patriots, the first real, dynasty of the social media age, you're going to miss them. You're going to miss them because the minute Bill Belichick is gone, there's not going to be anybody like him. And granted, not the most, dynamic guy when it comes to his press conferences. There's no one going to be like him. Heck, there have been a ton of Belichick proteges who have gone elsewhere and they try to be like Bill Belichick. Doesn't work. There's not going to be anybody like Tom Brady. Sure, there's going to be great quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks. There's some playing right now. You're not going to have another, former sixth-round pick who turns into the greatest of all time and does it kind of on his terms and has just this, incredible, insane work ethic and this weird doctor pushing these weird methods of him, playing until he's, 75 years old. You're going to miss Tom Brady. You're going to miss Bill Belichick. You're going to miss the whole Patriots thing. We're not going to ever get, again, a combination of best coach ever, best quarterback ever. So if this is indeed the end, and the end ain't coming on Saturday night because they ain't losing to Marcus Mariota, Derrick Henry, Mike Golic and the Tennessee Titans. I'm telling you, enjoy this. Because when it's over and we don't have the Patriots anymore, what do you got to replace them? First and last on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Mo Egger in for Mike Golic Jr. this morning. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. And think about that. Look around this league right now. There's some fun players. There's some fun teams. There's interesting stories, and there always will be. What do you got that's as good as the Patriots? And I was thinking about this week with Alabama football. I'm personally kind of bored by most Alabama football teams, but I'm not bored by Alabama, the football program. The teams themselves, the game on Monday night was fantastic, but the teams themselves, for the most part, don't really do anything for me. Right? But the program itself, I just love how it just, no matter who the players are, no matter what happens around them in the SEC, they just keep on cranking out national championships. It is a modern day college football dynasty. If Nick Saban went to the Giants or went away, retired, which he's not going to do, and suddenly Alabama was no longer Alabama, with apologies to Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson and some other Oklahoma, some other big time programs, what do you got that's Alabama? Nothing. No one. What do you got in the NFL that could replace the Patriots as the team that is consistently interesting, worth talking about, sometimes for reasons they don't want you talking about them, polarizing, that brings as many people to the table, that can ignite as many hot takes. Like right now, the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. They've got a coach who looks really good in a sun visor, which is hard to do. Aside from that, what do you got? They're the number one seed in the NFC this week. They've been kind of a fun story all year long. I still think Carson Wentz should be the MVP. They don't move the meter. The Minnesota Vikings, exceptionally well coached, really good, deep, well put together football team. Awesome home field advantage. Don't move the meter. The New England Patriots, say what you want about them, for 15 to 17 years, have absolutely moved the meter. And it's interesting how, this run has been bookended. Their introduction to a lot of this was an upset over the St. Louis Rams in January of 2002, which at the time was like this cool feel-good story that the Patriots upend this St. Louis team that just was, just crushing people in the NFC, a team that had won the title 2 years before. And now they're like this evil empire that's the exact opposite of what we thought the Patriots were back in 2001. I'm telling you, man, you are absolutely going to miss them. There's going to be nothing in the NFL, a league that just cranks out sameness and boring and recycles the same boring coaches and recycles the same boring game plans and the same boring philosophies. And we love it. Love the league. But there's nothing like the Patriots. There will be nothing like the Patriots. If this is it, savor it because you're going to miss it when it's over.
First and last, the podcast.
The college football playoff is awesome. And I hear the arguments to expand it to 8 teams. And maybe we're going to get there one day. In fact, I would bet that we will. And if so, well, the playoffs are going to be maybe even better, even if it's going to water down the regular season a little bit. But I love it. I love it because it's the most exclusive postseason in sports. There's no Tennessee Titans. There's no Buffalo Bills in the college football playoff postseason. And frankly, there was no Central Florida either. Now, is Central Florida like the Buffalo Bills? No, because the Buffalo Bills had a very okay regular season. Central Florida had an awesome regular season, won the American Athletic Conference, had an unbeaten year, won their conference championship game, had one of the best offenses in all of college football, really had one of the most fun-to-watch teams in all of college football. But they weren't in the college football playoff Final Four. And as much as I can sympathize with the little guy, I'm okay with it. This is Chris Lowe, ESPN college football senior writer on the Campus Conversation podcast, who said that this year's college football playoff was everything we'd hoped for when we started to go down this road of having 4 teams.
I do, and I think it's for different reasons. I mean, you've got the Oklahoma-Georgia game, Ivan, that was up and down the field. I mean, it's offensive football at its finest, back and forth, almost like a hockey game. You've got Clemson, Alabama was not as entertaining, but just dominant physical defense by Alabama. And then this game with this unlikely an ending with a true freshman quarterback throwing the winning touchdown pass to a true freshman receiver, a true freshman quarterback, by the way, who had not played any meaningful snaps this year, replacing a guy that was one of the top freshmen in college football last year. 2 teams from the same conference, mentor, understudy, Saban versus Kirby Smart. I think it's everything and then some, what we'd hoped for when we went down the playoff road. Now, the folks in the Big Ten, the folks in the Pac-12 may disagree, but I think it's still, as far as drama and entertainment, 2 straight years now the game has ended on the last play of the game. Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting great games. And I'll expand to what Chris Lowe said to Central Florida, who I'm going to talk about here in just a second. But for all the hand-wringing we do over who should get in, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun before and after. And as sympathetic as you might be to Central Florida's plight, we're getting what we as sports fans want. We're getting great games this year. And he's right. The Alabama-Clemson game was a little bit of a letdown by comparison, but Alabama was dominant in that game against the number 1 seed. That was bookended by a Rose Bowl that is one of the best 3 or 4 college football games I've ever seen, and the ending of the national championship game on Monday, which barely eclipsed last year's ending of the national championship game, which came down to the last play. Like we're getting great games. The last 3 college football playoff national title tilts have been outstanding. Now, some of the semifinals haven't been all that good. Last year's were, kind of duds. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Washington. But for the most part, we're getting great games. We would not get that if we had Central Florida in the college football playoff national championship, semifinals and finals. First and last on ESPN Radio, on the ESPN app, I'm Mo Egger in for Mike Golic Jr. I'll admit this. I am a diehard fan of an American Athletic Conference school, the University of Cincinnati, which participated in BCS bowl games in 2008 and 2009, had a very good program for a number of years, cranked out coaches, Brian Kelly now at Notre Dame, Mark D'Antonio, who's now the coach at Michigan State, Butch Jones, who was the coach at Tennessee and didn't do very well. But nonetheless, good program in the American Athletic Conference. So if there's anybody who can sort of look at Central Florida's case to be included, it's me, because I'd love it if the school that I root for actually had a more legitimate chance to compete for a national championship in college football, which quite frankly it doesn't. So Central Florida, it's the president, the AD, legislators in the state of Florida, fans all claiming, hey, we won all our games. We are the rightful heirs, the rightful owners of the title of national champion. And now there are fans of Central Florida who have bought a billboard. And they've put it up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, congratulating Alabama for winning the national title and asking the Crimson Tide if they want to play a home-and-home. In fact, I'm looking at the billboard right now. Darren Rovell tweeted it out. It says, congratulations, Alabama. How about a home-and-home series with UCF? The guy who funded the billboard says, quote, we felt like this year's team could run with anyone in the country, and the Peach Bowl win over Auburn proved that. All we needed was a chance to play harder opponents. said the original idea was to put up a billboard in Atlanta, which is where the College Football Playoff National Championship game was, but they missed the deadline, so they changed the ad, made arrangements to put the sign near the University of Alabama. By the way, UCF beat the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa way back in 2000. Here's the thing with this, right? Like, I love a good troll job. And this is a troll job. I love something that makes, like, the powers that be uncomfortable. This whole Central Florida cause has made a lot of college football diehards and blue bloods really uncomfortable. I listen to the Paul Feinbaum show. It's made him uncomfortable, which he looks like a guy it's really hard to make him uncomfortable. So I love this. But we don't want Central Florida playing for a national championship. Let me just ask you this. Regardless of where you live, whatever college football team you root for, okay? If there's an open home date and I say to you, Central Florida can come to town, are you rushing to get tickets to that game next year? Are you like, hey, honey, late September, Central Florida's coming. Can't name any of their players, no idea who their new coach is, but they won all their games last year. You're not going. If I said to you, Alabama's coming, you're buying more tickets than you need. Same thing if I said Clemson's coming. Same thing if I said Oklahoma's coming. Same thing if I said Georgia's coming. Like, we love the cause for the little guy, but we don't necessarily love watching the little guy. I get this all the time in college basketball, right? College basketball, the NCAA tournament, my favorite event in sports. Oh, it's all about the little guy has a chance. Absolutely. The first 2 months of the college basketball season, though, the little guy has a chance every single night. Every single night. There's quote-unquote bye games where schools like Kentucky and North Carolina and UCLA and Kansas play, Jacksonville State, Coppin State, schools that you've never heard of, schools that you can't even tell what state they're from. No one watches those games. No one goes to those games. No one wants to see those games. How many times do you hear it? Yeah, I start paying attention to college basketball when conference play starts. We don't want the little guy having a chance. We don't want blowouts. Like, part of the letdown to me to this weekend's NFL games, we could get 3 blowouts. Now, I don't necessarily think we will. I think Philly-Atlanta is going to be a pretty good game, and if it is a blowout, it's going to be because their quarterback's not there. But like in the AFC, we have Jacksonville. Jacksonville's like the little guy. Tennessee like the little guy. Both significant underdogs on the road against teams that are probably going to win, probably decisively. A little bit of a letdown. What do we all want? Let's get to next weekend where the games could be really good. Pittsburgh, New England could be fantastic. We want the best games. Central Florida or Houston or Boise State or even my University of Cincinnati Bearcats, they're not giving us the best games. And we don't want to watch them. Now, you might want to watch them if you love Central Florida or if you love Boise State or if you love Western Michigan. But we don't want to watch these games. What do we always say in September when, it's schools from the MAC playing schools from the Big Ten or schools from the Sun Belt playing schools from the SEC? Yeah, man, can we get to October when it's conference foes playing against each other?
First and last, the podcast. First and last, the podcast.
Kevin Durant made history last night in a Warriors loss at home to the Clippers.
Got it over to Kevin Durant down the right side. KD for 20,000. Got it! On the left wing. He becomes the 5th player in NBA history to get to 20,000 points under the age of 30. And what an elite group it is. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, and Michael Jordan.
95-7 the game last night. Clippers pounded Golden State, who didn't have Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. 125-106. Game was in Oakland last night, but Kevin Durant scored his 20,000th career point with $1:41 to go in the second quarter of last night's loss. Sat out the last 3 games with the right calf strain, and it took him just 16 minutes to score the 25 points he needed to achieve the feat. A pull-up crossover mid-range jumper. There was a foul on the other end right after that, and so Durant got a standing ovation. The Jumbotron at the Oracle Arena acknowledging the accomplishment. He really didn't show much emotion. He did offer a wave to the crowd. He finished with 40 points. Durant, one of just 5 players to have scored that many points before turning 30, along with LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, and Michael Jordan. He also became the 8th active player to pile up 20,000 points. The guys ahead of him still active: Dirk Nowitzki, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Dwayne Wade, Pau Gasol, and Joe Johnson. He explained last night how he got to 20,000 points so quickly.
I wasn't trying to get it out the way. I was just trying to stay locked in. My shot felt good, and I know we were missing Steph and Clay, and our offense is designed for them to kind of free everybody up and for us to go on runs by making threes. So I knew coach was going to call my number a bit there, and I just tried to make good shots, and they just kept falling, and I just stayed aggressive.
Yeah, he did get it out of the way early, scoring his 20,000th point, the 25th of the night last night, with about a minute and a half to go before halftime. By the way, Curry last night sitting out with an ankle injury. They say it's not all that serious. Curry recently has been just awesome, and Klay Thompson simply got a night of rest last night for the Warriors, who did lose that game by 19 points. KD talked afterwards about the emotions upon reaching 20,000 points.
I was excited about the move I made and my follow-through. I was disciplined on my follow-through, and I was proud of myself with that. But, for the fans to, recognize me for doing that and scoring that many points, it was cool. I mean, it's weird, because I don't like when everybody just standing up clapping for me as a team game and so many players out on the court, so that was weird. But for the most part, it's been fun, getting to this point in my career, and I'm looking forward to keep pushing, and thanks for all the love and support.
Durant entered last night averaging 25-9 a game plus just over 7 boards, 5.3 assists, and a career-high 2.1 blocks for the Western Conference leading Golden State Warriors. And a guy, I've always felt this about LeBron James. LeBron James is the most heavily scrutinized athlete, I think, of the last 20 years. The first sort of face of the NBA in the social media age, and, a guy who he's polarizing and all those sort of things. And I've always felt like LeBron should be appreciated more because he did what we always say we want in sports, which is he lived up to the hype. And, for a kid who was, famous when he was 14 years old and just had so much surrounding him when he entered the NBA, frankly, he's exceeded expectations, and he's certainly lived up to the hype. And we always complain in sports that so many things don't. LeBron did. I feel that way about Kevin Durant to a lesser extent. Now, Kevin Durant went to college, but that 1 year at Texas it whet your appetite for what he might be able to be as a pro, and he's delivered on the hype. He's delivered on everything that people were writing about him during that one season at Texas. He's become one of the most prolific scorers in the history of the sport, an MVP, an NBA world champion, and a guy who's showing no sign of slowing down. And so what I hope happens, and I'm hoping against hope, if you will, because this won't, for a guy who's now kind of been recast over the last couple of years as a villain, I really hope that we take a second to kind of look back on what he's done so far. And the key verbiage there is so far, because the dude has had a remarkable career. He's lived up to every expectation, exceeded every expectation that people have had for him. For the most part, handled himself exceptionally well, a great ambassador for the sport, a remarkable talent, and a really fun player to watch who did something last night that's pretty cool, that for a lot of people will be obscured by the fact that you've decided that you just simply hate Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. First and last on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Mo Egger in for Mike Golic Jr. So we're at the NBA midway point. Almost everybody in the league has played their 41st game. There's some things that I think we've learned so far this year. And the first one for me is this. And I was just thinking about this listening to the bottom of the hour Sports Center. There was actually a baseball move last night. The Mets signed Jay Bruce, whom they traded to the Indians last year. Now they got him back, 3-year deal. This has been like the quietest offseason in baseball history for a bunch of different reasons. Jake Arrieta, Yu Darvish, Howie Kendrick, J.D. Martinez. Like Eric Hosmer. There's a list of guys that would make up a playoff team if you put them together that still don't have jobs about a month before spring training. And so what's it doing? It has basically killed all the momentum from a great baseball postseason, where now it's like, all right, who's playing? What are the storylines? In the NBA, the offseason was incredible. It's a league driven by player movement. What did it do? It created excitement. It created interest. It created storylines. It hyped up a season that we knew from the outset we were probably going to get the same teams in the NBA Finals. And what has that done this year? It's yielded some pretty interesting things during the regular season. For me, a couple of the bigger things we've learned here in the first half of the year. Number one being this: Jason Tatum is going to be a star. A guy who should be the NBA's Rookie of the Year. We obviously have a season to go, but the rookie forward for the Boston Celtics so far, through the first 43 games of his career, is on pace with Steph Curry's rookie season in Oakland. averaging 13.9 a game. Steph Curry averaged 14 his first 43. Field goal percentage, Jason Tatum higher. 3-point field goal percentage, Jason Tatum higher. Free throw percentage, 82.6 versus Steph's 84.9. Averaging almost 2 steals a game. Steph Curry averaged 2 steals a game for the Celtics his first 43 games during his rookie season. He's been comparable. He's been, for me, the most important Boston Celtic. He's helped them absorb the loss of Gordon Hayward. He's helped them sort of navigate the waters of having to introduce all those new players to Brad Stevens' system. He's kept them afloat in many regards, and he's developing great chemistry with Kyrie Irving. We should be talking about Karl Anthony Towns more. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are 25-16 through 41 games. They just whacked the Cleveland Cavaliers the other night. We spent a lot of time talking in the West about Golden State, understandably so. Houston, understandably so. OKC, understandably so. Quite quietly, the Minnesota Timberwolves have turned into one of the best offensive teams in the league, which you don't expect when Tom Thibodeau is the head coach. And yet, with Jimmy Butler and Jeff Teague and Taj Gibson and Jamal Crawford and Karl Anthony Towns, who's averaging 20 and 10, which, by the way, that's rarer than you think, they've become a really fun offensive team to watch, even if they do it by throwing the ball down low to a guy who's really kind of a dinosaur in today's NBA, but he's still effective. A back-to-the-basket, traditional offensive big man who has a lot of other skills, too. We should be talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves some more. We should be talking about Lonzo Ball some more. Lonzo Ball. If I would have told you that your favorite NBA team could get a rookie point guard that in his first 34 games would average 10 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, you would say what? You'd say, yeah, I'll take that. There's a lot of focus on what Lonzo Ball doesn't do well, namely, shoot. He's a poor free throw shooter. He's a poor outside shooter. He's also a marvelous passer. He also has shown instincts this year that defy his age. Now, we make a big deal about LeVar. Whenever LeVar Ball's name is brought up, we hear about how sorry you feel for Lonzo. And then you get the people who just hate Lonzo Ball because of who his dad is. They're not watching Lonzo Ball play. If you actually watch him play, you see a magnificent talent who is going to be a transformative basketball player, who's going to make more money for teammates in the NBA for the LA Lakers than anybody in the history of this league. And you see a guy that is having a good, not great, rookie season. Here's something else we've learned. We're taking LeBron James for granted. Dude is averaging 27-1 a game. That's exactly his career average. He's averaging a career high in assists. He's just shy of averaging a career high in rebounds. His three-point shooting percentage is higher than it's ever been. He leads the league in field goals. He leads the league in an advanced metric, value over replacement. The Cleveland Cavaliers' collective starters plus minus is negative this year. Now, LeBron shot down anything that he shot down that stat the other day. He shot down anything that would suggest that stat says that the starters aren't getting it done in Cleveland. Do what you want with that number. Do this. We're going to talk a lot about where LeBron's going to go next year. We're going to talk a lot about whether the Cavs use that pick from Brooklyn to give someone to LeBron to make them better in the East and perhaps position them better to beat the Golden State Warriors. I say this about the Patriots. Enjoy them while they're here. Enjoy LeBron. He is defying age. He is defying logic. He is defying usage. He's still playing 37 minutes a game. He is still the most valuable player in this sport, and he's having an excellent season, even if it's his final one in Cleveland. One more before we get to the obvious. Eric Spoelstra, Miami, still a great coach. Remember when the Miami Heat last year were 11-30? Since then, they've played 82 games, a full NBA regular season. They're 54-28. Quickly, how many Miami Heat players can you name? They made one kind of big move in the offseason, getting Kelly Olynyk. Aside from that, they don't have any stars. A lot of talk right now about whether they can go and get a star at the trade deadline. They're doing it with some players who are very good, a system that's in place, and a coach who was overlooked when they had LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. And now he's doing a great job for a team that in the East is very much overlooked. And finally, despite everything I just said, as awesome as the offseason was, we're getting Cavs Warriors. The series is going to go 5. Golden State's going to win again.
First and last, the podcast. First and last. the podcast.
Baker Mayfield is eligible to participate in the NFL Scouting Combine. League spokesperson, NFL spokesperson, confirmed that on Wednesday. The list of players invited to Indy for the Combine in late February, early March has not yet been finalized. The expectation is that Mayfield, the college football's Heisman Trophy winner, is going to be among those invited. In recent years, per NFL policy, some players who had off-field legal issues were not invited to participate, including Mayfield's former teammate at Oklahoma, Joe Mixon, who may be the most high-profile case, drafted by the Bengals last year, not invited to the scouting combine. That video surfaced of him punching that woman at a restaurant in Norman that ultimately led to him getting suspended for 1 year. And it was a huge hot topic this time about a year ago, and the Bengals still drafted him. Mixon fell to the second round, middle of the second round, and you wonder where he would have been drafted had he not been involved with that incident. Anyway, Mayfield was arrested last February in Arkansas. He was charged with public intoxication, disorderly conduct, fleeing, and resisting arrest. He reached a plea deal in June, paid fines for several of the charges, but because that incident didn't involve violence, NFL officials don't seem to think that it rises to the level of offense that would preclude a player from participating in the Combine. I'm reading from Dan Graziano of ESPN.com. NFL spokesperson said there was, quote, no issue that would preclude him from attending. When asked specifically about Mayfield's case, the NFL does background checks on all potential Combine invitees and would refuse to invite anyone who had a conviction involving violence. Mayfield will participate also in the Senior Bowl later this month. I think this is a dumb policy. I think this is unfair to the teams. Now, look, Joe Mixon got drafted last year, wasn't at the Combine. Teams still had the freedom to go to his pro day. They had the freedom to go talk to him. I actually talked with the Cincinnati Bengals running backs coach, the guy who is now Joe Mixon's position coach in Cincinnati, and he spent basically a week around Oklahoma's campus, a week talking with people, talking with coaches, talking with his teammates, just vetting him. He had Joe Mixon come stay at his house for a couple of days in Cincinnati. So, I mean, just because the guy's not at the Combine doesn't mean that you can't go through every possible method of gathering information. At the same time, if you're the National Football League, you do want your teams armed and equipped with the most information possible when deciding who they're going to draft. And if you're going to say that a guy like Joe Mixon or, I guess, Baker Mayfield, if you're going to say that those guys are eligible to play in your league, why would you then ban them from the Combine, which would then make it a little bit more difficult, at least, for the teams interested in those players to get the most information possible? Like, see, to me, the Combine's not like a privilege, right? They're treating the Combine like a privilege, like, ooh, only the guys who behave well. And I get it. I understand. We want these guys to be punished. We do. But if the league is going to say that these players are eligible to earn a living, make a paycheck, playing in their league, and now it's up to the teams to decide whether they want to draft them, whether that player is good enough, whether that player is capable of not getting in trouble again. We want those teams to measure the PR fallout, what the public is going to say, what sponsors are going to say, the rip job that the media is going to enjoy. I mean, just all those things. We want them to weigh everything. Why then would you not want the player at the Combine dealing with questions in atmospheres that the teams and the league itself can control? The Combine is an information-gathering device. Yes, it's become a little bit of a TV show. Certainly it's a convention for NFL people, but it ultimately is an information-gathering device. The on-field stuff, the interviews, the background work you do in starting to vet these guys, and it's obviously not the see-all and end-all. Obviously, it's not the only mechanism that you could use. But if these guys are going to be eligible, and you want teams to make the most informed decision as they possibly can as to whether they're going to draft a guy like a Joe Mixon or even a player like Baker Mayfield, why then wouldn't you want the player at the Combine? By the way, it's a league-controlled thing. If you're the National Football League itself and the people involved, then you have to arrive at some level of comfort with that guy making a living in your league Why wouldn't you want him in one of your environments where you have a chance to get to know him? If you're Roger Goodell, if you're the NFL people, if you're the NFL security people, I think this is sort of a disservice to the teams. I think it's kind of a disservice to the league itself. And again, a player who would get in trouble and have violence in his past and be arrested and maybe serve, a punishment away from football because of something that he did. Ultimately, you might not want those guys in the league, and that's fine. And you might not want your team to draft those guys. But if we're going to say that those guys are eligible, I think you then have to give the teams every piece of information possible. You have to allow those teams to have every available resource at their disposal to vet the player, and a part of that is the scouting combine. First and last on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, Mo Egger for Mike Golic Jr. this morning. Here's Ryan McGee, ESPN college football senior writer, comparing Baker Mayfield to Christian Laettner on the Campus Conversation podcast.
People love to hate him. I compare him all the time to Christian Laettner. And those of us of a certain age remember when Christian Laettner was at Duke, and there was that great 30 for 30 about him. And what they said over and over about him is that if he was on your team, you loved him. If he was not on your team, you hated him. And you hated him because other people loved him. And the thing that drove you crazy was that the look, but also the fact that he could more than likely back it up. But the difference between Baker Mayfield and Christian Laettner is that Baker Mayfield didn't win a national championship. Came awful close, and certainly played in one of the greatest games I've ever watched.
I like that comparison more than the comparison to Johnny Manziel. I like that comparison more than some of the comparisons I've been hearing about Baker Mayfield. Yeah, you love him. You love him if he's yours. You can't stand him if he's not. We'll see if he's at the Combine.
Thank you for listening to the First and Last podcast. You can listen and subscribe to all ESPN podcasts in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. First and Last.